everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Spot of Hope, exclusively on What's Up Media Network. Tonight, we do have another great guest, Dr. Glenn Maleyko, the Dearborn Public Schools superintendent. Dr. Maleyko, welcome, and thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so much for your continued support. We highly appreciate it. Make sure that you share the videos, and so we can get this message to as much as people as possible. Tonight we'll be talking about the Dearborn Public Schools, all the numbers, statistics, issues, the third graders, new law that the public schools took a stand on it and made a decision to how they're going to deal with it. So all of that, we're going to be dealing with that with Dr. Glenn Maleyko. Also, big shout out to the sponsors of What's Up Media Network, Sling Arabic TV, over 130 channels, BM Sports, Mushahada Plus. To get a free membership with that, all we got to do is to get in touch with not Dr. Glenn Maleyko, but with Hussein Hashim or What's Up Media Network. Dr. Maleyko, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah,
so thanks so much for being here with us.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the public schools.
Okay.
For how long have you been the superintendent for now?
5 years.
5 years.
Going on 5 years, yeah, my
Five-
fifth year.
5 years.
24 years in the district, though.
24
Over 24 now.
Over 24 years. Wow.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. But first, we're going to talk about the hottest thing that is going on now. That is the third graders' reading policy. Could you please just tell us about it? What is that all about? And why is it that you guys decided to take such route?
So, I mean, this came from the Michigan State Legislature. It was actually a law that passed in 2000. It started in 2016 during the presidential election. At the time, Jeb Bush was running for president. And actually, that would have been 2015, I'm sorry, I believe. And there was some discussion in the legislature about implementing a law that he had implemented similar in Florida. And so initially what they did is they said that they wanted all third graders to be on grade level, or if they were not, then they would implement interventions and a retention policy. And so this was mandated by the state. The law was passed. It would start this year, actually. And so any third graders that are more than a year below grade level, according to the M-STEP, which is the state of testing, the state would then send letters out to the parents to notify them that they were below that level. The law would then kick in, and it would require them to be retained, but there are also some exemptions within that, that students could get exempt if the superintendent or designee agreed. We personally put out a press release. We believe in third graders, literacy interventions, English language development programs. We have an early childhood program. And we did get a limited amount of money from the state, but I would say mainly this is an unfunded mandate. To have that high number of students reading on grade level, it would really require, across the state for that matter, would require more funding. And so we support overall literacy and third grade reading. What we don't support is a mandatory retention provision. Retention meaning the students would stay in that grade because the research is very spotty, sketchy, and is not positive as far as the impact it would have. You might have your individual student that may have traveled or went overseas, missed some of the school year, and so on an individual basis, it might work for an individual. But I personally don't believe, as an educator and all the research I've looked at, and it's really a theme across the state. I was at the state superintendent conference 2 weeks ago. I actually addressed all the superintendents. The state superintendent was there. And there's a consensus among the educational bodies that retention is not effective. And so, so it's not just my opinion. And so what we are saying is that we will help families issue exemption provisions if that's what they choose to do. We'll be well within compliance of the law. And again, I want to just state that we believe in the overall idea of all third graders reading by third grade, and that we provide lots of interventions. We, in fact, last year had a task force that was led by Dr. Chokol, our executive director, who I'm sure you're aware of, Dr. Chokol. And she did a great job bringing community and educators together to look at this law. And we came up with a plan of action. We've been out in the forefront, and I think Dearborn has kind of taken the lead in this area. On a positive note, we looked at our data from last year. And so when we looked at the retention of students based on last year's data, if the law were implemented last year, there was only going to be about 30 students that would, out of about 1,400 to 1,500 third graders, that it would have actually applied to. So that's a positive, that it's not a high number in Dearborn.
Absolutely. So then the district decided to basically to the state, hey, we're not going to go with that, or?
Well, no, we can't do that. We have to follow the law. We're ethical. We must follow the law. But what we...
But I mean, like, but what I meant is, like, you cannot, like, say, hey, that's why we think that this is not, you know, something that we should follow, or?
We did. In fact,
Okay.
what happened initially is there was no exemption provisions. And so our organization, like the State Superintendent Association, MASA, which I'm a board member on the states, I was elected by my colleagues from across the state last year. We also have the School Board Association. Other educational groups advocated in Lansing to get some exemptions because we did not support the retention portion of it. So what we asked for was some exemption provisions. So for example, if you have an English language learner, a student that's bilingual, special education students, they can get an exemption and a waiver that we would then, and that's fully compliant with the law. So we don't have to tell them that we're not following. All we have to say is we'll exercise the exemption or the waivers for those students. At the same token, we can't just exercise a waiver, then we have to have an intervention program to make sure we get those students up to grade level.
Absolutely. So what is it that you guys are going to do now? So as you just said, just basically with whatever, so you guys are going to have implement the law.
Yes.
And those who are exempt, qualified to be exempt, they'll be exempt, and then those who are not, just gonna go through the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that from what we saw last year, those that would have qualified, all of them would have had the option of getting an exemption. So if a parent is adamant that they don't want to retain because we know the research on it, then we're not going to retain the student. We'll work with the parent, we'll work with the teacher, and we'll develop a plan. We'll also develop a plan for that student, an individualized plan, so that we can get that student up on grade level. I think our district is a leader in early childhood literacy in the work we're doing. We actually took some of our Wayne County enhancement millage and we funded early childhood specialists. That was like 3 years ago. And then what happened, so these specialists go in and they are an extra teacher that is in the class that provides small group instruction for the students.
Sure.
We do that with our English language development specialists as well, and then we have literacy coaches. So we believe heavily, I think we're a leader actually in that across the state.
This is awesome, man. Congratulations to all the accomplishments, especially the Dearborn population is highly diverse and vibrant.
Yes.
So that would be very interesting. I mean, you know, such law, I mean, to be practically implemented, because as you have been talking about, we have a lot of refugees, newcomers,
Sure.
English second language speakers and learners. So that's going to be very kind of challenging. But as you said, that even according to last year's data, a lot of them, they will be either, you know, over, you know, meaning that they don't meet that, you know, limit, or they will be having the opportunity to get exempt.
And so what we're doing is we're informing parents so that they will know their rights.
Be aware of it.
And we're being very public about that. We're sending out the letter.
That's what I want to ask you. So how are you guys communicating that with the parents? So now you guys send the state, you know, this message, or you've been communicating with other educational groups and superintendents. But as far as parents, are you guys like organizing meetings, town halls? Is it just sending papers with the kids?
So every school has discussed it with their principal at the local elementary level during their parent meetings. We also sent out letters. Letters are going out from me to all parents of third graders we're sending a letter to all parents, not just the ones that may be retained, because we don't know yet. We won't get that information from the state until May.
Okay.
We want parents not to get worried about it. If you do get a letter from the state, I will say it almost, the way the state is implementing the procedure doesn't really necessarily isn't the most practical way, because it's not even the Michigan Department of Education sending the letter. It's from the data organization called CEPI. They're going to send these letters. Now we're supposed to get a preview of it, and if we do, we'll start informing parents that may be impacted. But if we don't, we're at the mercy of this data organization. So when the law was written too, the other thing they did was they didn't have the dates and the timelines. It doesn't give us a lot of time. And initially it was like the M-step, you wouldn't get your results till the summer. So now they're they're giving us the results sooner, because they have to, because you can't get into August when school's starting and then all of a sudden get the results. You know, you need time and preparation to let families know if the student is struggling in reading.
Absolutely. And then if a student is going to get his or her results in the summer, then they are preparing to go to the fourth grade, and all of a sudden, oops, you can't go to the fourth grade because you did not meet the 1250, I believe the average.
Yeah, so the state superintendent told us 2 weeks ago at the meeting, it was at not Kobo, it was at the Renaissance Center.
Yes.
That they anticipate getting information to us for the district by the end of April and then May. So that, according to them, has been fixed. So we'll see. We'll see when the letters actually come out. Time will tell. But we'll be looking for them for sure.
So then you're expecting some students to retake the third grade?
Again, I'm not going to say for sure that one way or another.
But is that a possibility?
It's a possibility because of the law, but we'll be dealing with each student as an individual, and we'll make a determination. I mean, if the family feels and the teacher feels that the retention would work, then that's fine, but we'd have to go through a lot of factors. But I can tell you in my experience, again, I've been 24 years, and I haven't seen I've seen very little positive research on that. And generally, what you want to do is implement interventions for the student. You don't, just having them retake a grade is not a positive intervention. And there's a lot of social emotional damage too, because the student is older and they're not going along with their peers. So there's research showing the detriment as well. So I'm not a proponent of retention. Again, have we retained in the district? Yes. Do we do it often? No. It's very infrequent.
How are you preparing teachers and admins basically to face such things, especially teachers, since they are on the front line with the students, if we may say that? Are there any special training? Like, obviously you can notice if someone is lagging behind when it comes to their reading level, but what is it that you guys are doing? Special training added
Yeah, absolutely.
to
we
that?
do. We have the Dearborn Teacher Academy, and so all of our teachers in elementary go through reading training. Dr. Groover heads it up, and then we also have literacy coaches in all our schools. So the coaches are also providing training within the schools on literacy. We do have right now a teacher shortage in the state, and we have had a turnover in the state. And one of the things that we've done in Dearborn over the last 4 years, I believe we've hired 500 teachers of 1,400, almost 1,500. So 1/3 of our staff is within their first 4 to 5 years. Amazing. Now they may have taught in a charter school or another district and come to us, but they're new in Dearborn. And we actually have since I know we're talking about the reading law, but we do have a critical shortage in the state.
Teacher.
Special ed is one of the highest priority areas.
We'll talk about that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And right now, I can give you a statistic. Teacher college programs that students are going in to be a teacher is down nationally 27%. There's data that Dr. Rice, the state superintendent, presented.
Oh, wow.
Michigan is down 54% in their colleges of education.
Oh, wow.
So that's very concerning for us because now we have a smaller pool to hire teachers from.
We'll talk about that. Just wanted to kind of wrap up the
Sure.
reading law by saying that to kind of recap what you have been saying. So you guys don't know that until April or May, and then you guys will be communicating with the parents of those who might be impacted. And you guys are not just big fan of it because of the research did not show much of a lot of encouraging and promising results as a result of retention.
Correct.
Just want to recap that.
Yeah.
Just so
But we do like other parts of the law that talk about interventions for students.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, no doubt about improving their reading skills and make them better readers. It's going to help them, tremendously throughout elementary and middle school, high school, and college. That's amazing. And speaking of schools, Dr. Maleyko, I mean, we cannot, really help it, but congratulate, Tractor. This past weekend was a Super Bowl. I mean, speaking of the public schools and all our accomplishments, Robert Salahi is the defense coordinator for the 49ers, although they fell short and they couldn't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But for us, for him to be up there representing Dearborn and our community at its finest, that was a big, proud moment for all of us. So congrats, Robert, and congrats to his family and to the entire Dearborn community. What do you have to say about that?
And I reiterate that as well. It's wonderful to have successful Fordson and Dearborn schools graduates doing well in society and making a difference.
Not only in business,
I was
medicine,
disappointed.
yes,
I was disappointed they didn't win too.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Hey,
Yes.
that's quite an
He
accomplishment.
made it up there, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we are used to have Forson graduates or Dearborn High graduates or Edsel Ford graduates that are doctors, business people, politicians, government officials, could be even icons but, to have an athlete, that's amazing.
Yes.
And that takes us to the accomplishment of our public schools. Congrats on being named the superintendent of the year last year.
Oh, thank you.
And for a couple of our schools also been Blue Ribbon.
Yes.
So Joseph can tell us, what does that mean when a school earns that honor?
So we've had 3 years in a row, and there's not many districts that can say that.
Amazing, congratulations.
Only 13 are given out in the state out of roughly, I believe there's roughly like 3,500 schools in the state of Michigan.
Nice.
And so I've been to Washington 3 years in a row with the teacher. I wish I could bring the whole school. And so what it is they have different categories. They have for beating the odds and achievement, and then they have for both. And so basically, we have high achieving schools, and we also have schools that, with the different demographics in our district, we're doing very well with some of the different challenges of poverty levels and other things. English language learners, you mentioned refugees and immigrants.
Yes.
We have a large number, and so our schools are successful. And really, it's a reflection of the whole district. So in fact, we're going to have a celebration on this Monday, the 10th, at Lindbergh, because that was the third school to receive it. And so Debbie Dingle's going to be there. I believe the mayor may be showing up, Representative Hammoud. And so the school's putting out, just going to have an afternoon little reception. So that the students,
open for the public, or?
Yeah, I believe it is, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you have the
So you'd be
details,
welcome.
the time and?
Yes, I could get you that. I believe it's 2 o'clock.
Okay, 2 in the afternoon at
yes,
Lindbergh.
in the afternoon
Okay,
at Lindbergh,
no
yeah.
problem. Congratulations, to you, to the entire administration, to the school board, to our, tireless, hardworking teachers and admins and staff and everybody, parents and the community. This is a community celebration. That's amazing. Also, speaking of awards, you've also just recently received the Transparency and Budget Awards, two separate ones.
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row, too. What does that have to do with? Is it just how transparent and how equitable the budget has been, or?
Yes, it's for balancing the budget, being transparent, presenting the data in the community, having it available. And I got to tell you, it's a lot of work. The book is like this thick. Mr. Tom Wall leads that, our executive director of business and operations. He does a fantastic job. We've actually presented on this at a state level and a national level, Mr. Wall, and we will be presenting, myself, Mr. Wall, and Mary Petlichkoff, board trustee, will be presenting at the National School Board Conference on our budget process. So we're being looked at from across the nation. In fact, that's one of the things I believe in heavily, very avid speaker at state and national conferences, because I think it's great to give back, and it just shows, too, that Dearborn is one of the leaders, not only a state but a national level, and so we have a couple presentations coming up. But the budget itself, it's very rigorous. At some point, you may want to invite Mr. Wall on this show to talk about budgets in the state, because it's a hot topic right now. There's a school finance report that shows that Michigan, and there's a study that was done by Michigan State showing that Michigan rates last in education funding over a 5-year period. And so we're always, the governor and the legislature, we're always hopeful that they'll come up with a budget. And what I would like to see is what we call the weighted formula that the governor has proposed, where you would get additional funding for English language learners, special education at a higher level than what we currently are funded.
And that's what I want to ask you about next, is the special education department, the services, and the newcomers, and the ESL. So how is that getting affected by all these cuts, or as you've been saying, Michigan has been ranking last for the past 5 consecutive years when it comes to education funding. How is that affecting special ed programs, services, accommodations? Because it takes a lot of money too. Additional staff, busing, and you name it, as well as to provide other programs for our newcomers, our refugees, and immigrants.
Yeah, it is a challenge. We're using our own budget, and we're making do with what we have, and we've been leaders in that area. I believe in special education. We've implemented our co-teaching model, and then we have a serious issue on a national level with an expansion of students with autism. Mm-hmm. And so that is also an area of shortage. So right now, one of our biggest challenges is just staff shortages across the state, and so we've gotten more competitive in Dearborn, where we can bring staff from special ed in at higher salaries. But the problem with that model is that what's happening is the pool is dwindled in the state. So what we're essentially doing is the pool used to be here, now it's here. So now all the districts are going for this pool. So what we're doing is we're competing with other districts. And what we really need to do, and I was talking to Dr. Rice at the conference. I know him well, the state superintendent who took over for Mr. Whiston, the late great Mr. Whiston. Yes. And he said that it's got to be a broader, it can't be an individual district solution, because otherwise we don't have enough. We've got to broaden the pool, and we have to maybe look at some ways to maybe equalize compensation. Yeah, because otherwise, obviously I'm going to do what I need to do to protect Dearborn schools. But at the same token, if we have teachers jumping from district to district, it's not good for any students in Michigan, and I don't like that at all. I definitely don't like it if they leave Dearborn, but I also, I'm going to serve on the county committee on this area to try to come up with some guidelines. But I don't like it when teachers move during the year, because it's not fair to students, whether they're from Dearborn or anywhere else. I just don't think it's the right thing. Now, sometimes you have a unique situation or someone leaves for a promotion. We understand that. But because the pool is so small, districts are now taking from each other.
Yes.
And it's not a positive.
Do you think that this shortage is only because of the salary, or is it because they feel that they are unable to move and make good progress with the students? In other words, they feel that they are legally they are kind of they have so many things their hands are tied with, the parents are not that cooperative or not that tolerance of the situation. Is it like the whole thing combined, or you think it's mainly because of the salary?
Well, if they go to another district, then it's just the salary. If they leave the teaching profession in general, then it would be more some of those other things like stress on the job, and social media has changed things too. Because one of the things that I will encourage, since you have your audience here,
yes.
Parents, when they have an issue, really what you want to start doing is first reach out to the teacher, then the principal at the building. Going through the process, but sometimes, and we have a lot of great parents that follow that process.
Absolutely.
But then we have sometimes where we have people that will go out and just post something on social media, but haven't really discussed it with the school staff. And personally, I don't think that's the best way to go. I would, set up a meeting. If eventually you're not satisfied, then so be it with the social media, I guess. But the first thing in today's society, a lot of times, is to go to social media, rather than maybe making a call or setting up a meeting to try and alleviate the issue. Because we want to help, we want to work with parents, we want to work with students. And so my recommendation always is to contact the teacher, contact the parents, contact the principal. If they call my office, I'm not going to know the situation, so it's better, at least initially, for them to contact the school. Now, if they're not satisfied after they've gone through the process, and they talk, then fine, contact us. But I always still caution, what we put on social media with that. And so when there's issues, I think that stresses teachers out too, right? When people can just put stuff up on social media. So I would just say, out of respect for the profession, we'll be very respectful in our response. We also have to follow the law where we can't put student information out. And so that's what I'd ask parents to do, is to just, out of respect for the profession, and that will mitigate some of the stressfulness, because teachers want to do a good job for the students.
Absolutely. What about parents who say that, they tried so hard, but they are either not getting hold of anybody, or they are not really receiving the help that they need?
Well, I think that then if they've gone through the process, if they talk to the teacher, they talk to the principal, the next step would be to contact central office if they're not satisfied. And they would talk to one of the executive directors of achievement. If it's in special ed, it would be Mr. Saley. If it's in one of the other areas, Miss Peterson is in the Fordson track, Dr. Chokol is in the Etzel Ford, and Miss Fatmi Faraj is in the Dearborn High track. And so then they could work with us, and we'll help facilitate the conversation. So I would say, if they've gone through the process and they follow that, then sure, yeah, you can come up, and that's why we're here to help. I think ultimately everyone does want to make a difference, but if we find out that someone isn't, then we will provide support, and that's been our reputation. That's been my reputation all the years I've been working for. And I believe heavily in serving our students and our parents and making sure that they feel welcome in schools.
Absolutely.
I stand for that.
Absolutely. We're going to come back to you, Dr. Maleyko. Just wanted to thank our audience once again for always tuning in, for their continued support of this show, A Spot of Hope, since August of 2019. Please make sure that you keep on sharing the video. and this video and other videos so we can reach as much as people as possible. Dr. Maleyko, back to you. So we were talking about how to get a hold of you. I remember that you used to run a student committee. I mean, speaking of getting in touch with people, are you still doing that?
Yes, it's the 5th year, and in fact, remember I said there's 2 presentations at the national conference?
Yes.
The second one is on student voice.
Nice.
And our superintendent student advisory council that also works with the Board of Education.
Wonderful.
In fact, I've had contact from other superintendents who love that model. It's one of my favorite things. This month we're going to be having all the students are going to be going to all the Rotary meetings every Thursday. It's the youth month at Rotary. One of the highlights. They're doing some great things. We just ran a Korematsu celebration last week at the Michael Berry Center. And they also had a service day during Martin Luther King Day that they ran. So they're involved in a lot, and they do a great job. But the one thing that I like is that they talk to me and they give me information, and we can have some time where I'm listening to students. And I think that's very important. We also implement it in the middle schools too. Now the executive directors run the meetings in the middle schools, and I only go a couple times a year. But it's one of my favorite things that I do is interacting with our wonderful students.
Are you planning on doing something like that with the parents as well, or just you leave that to the PTAs and the teacher?
We have different parent committees. I go to the PTA meeting every month. I meet with PTA council on once a month on the Thursday, and then the other thing I do with parents is what we call chatting with the superintendent. I don't know if you've seen those, where I go out in the community. We just had one at Becker last Monday, and so the parents can come and ask questions, and the staff for that matter.
Sure. It's very nice to have that open policy. I mean, even if it's not maybe in your office, but to be accessible. I mean, you're everywhere. I mean, let's also give where the credit is due. You try to be everywhere. You attend a lot of events in the community, and you're on social media as well. And a lot of your admins are on social media as well. As you said earlier, that social media has become something very instrumental that we cannot avoid or ignore anymore.
Correct.
Of course, we have to use it properly, and we have to go through the process as you've been talking about. What about some statistics? I see that Dearborn Schools has over 95% of graduation,
yes,
right?
95% graduation, yeah.
And then over 80% they go to college.
College, yes. College admission rate. So we have students that go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, University of Michigan, Michigan State, Wayne State, U of M, Dearborn in our backyard, and then one of our hidden gems, I believe, and I have a great relationship under the leadership of the board with President Cavalluna, Henry Ford College.
Absolutely.
Where we have the early college program where students can take a 5-year program and get an associate's degree and a diploma, and that means that they take all their classes on the college for 5 years, or what they can do is they can enroll in the Collegiate Academy where they'll go to their main high school and they'll take some of their 11th and 12th grade classes at the college.
Nice.
And again, they can get an associate's degree paid for by us with funding through the state. It's a great program.
That's amazing. And then by the time they finish their high school, they go straight to their undergrad, their bachelor's.
Well, they can either go for a job if they can use the 2-year degree, or they can, like you said, they can transfer it into a 4-year degree.
Absolutely. What about the trade programs? I mean, speaking of Henry Ford College and Ford Motor Company and all the automobile and all that stuff, are there any partnerships from that? Because Dearborn is a city of Ford.
Yeah, Henry Ford, the college runs their own trade programs, but then we also run some at the Michael Berry Center and in some of the high schools. To be honest, I'd like to continue to expand some of those programs, and we do have some conversations. So I think we could even do more. Unfortunately, the bond did not pass in November. Had it passed, we would have been able to expand those programs. But we're going to have a community committee come back, and we're going to look at those things because we need to expand. We need space at the college, and we need space to expand those programs at the Michael Berry Center.
So when you say that committee to meet and talk about that stuff, is it initially another proposal for another bond, or just strictly about such specific projects?
I mean, we'll see where it goes, but I would think that we would have to go for a bond, or we'll listen to the community and come up with a plan. At some point, with the age of our buildings and with the need for these programs, which are very beneficial, we need to come back and come together with a plan. So right now we're in the process of looking at what we need to do, and then eventually what we'll do is we'll bring in a community committee to get input. The nice thing is we did do a lot of work over 2 years, so we have a lot of data and information. We won't have to start from scratch.
Absolutely, that's good.
And we only lost by a little. I mean, it was close, and we respect the community, and so we'll have to do better the next time around.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, have you guys communicated as a public schools administration with the No Group?
Yeah, we had Yeah, there's different no groups, but the one that was really advocating on social media, we had a meeting. We have a positive meeting with them back in December, and we will, once we get ready for the committee, we'll definitely have more dialogue with them.
Absolutely. Well, we need a community level agreement on this because it's going to go through the benefit of our schools and our students, all students in all our schools. The bond, the new bond, when the committee meets and it's expanded and it's going to add a lot of members and everyone is going to be happy, hopefully. It's going to cover pretty much the same, elements that the previous one covered, or it's going to be additional stuff. Or
I mean, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I'm open-minded. I'm open to ideas.
Nice.
But again, we have a lot of information done, so we're not stuck on just the things. Now, there may be some things that we would go for potentially, depending on what the committee does, and then eventually the board is the one that's going to have to, approve it. But we definitely need to get working on that.
Sure.
So I can't say exactly where that will go because, I mean, there's different ideas out there. And there is disagreements, but that's good. That's healthy. We'll have
It's
different
good to
ideas.
disagree, yes. And the good thing about that is you can blend everybody's views in, and you can even come up with a better deal at the end.
Yeah.
And again, this is all going to be for our students. Dr. Maleyko, today we flipped kind of the structure of the show. So usually we start from the personal experience background, and then we start to dive in a little bit to the issues. So having said that, since we covered pretty much all we wanted to cover, unless you have to add something that we didn't cover, or
No, I just appreciate you bringing me on, and
absolutely,
you're a good person in the community.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. One last thing we want to talk about is just your background. I mean, so many people know, especially those who are involved in the public schools and everything else, that you've been here for over 24 years in the district, and you started as a substitute. So basically, if you can please give us a brief background about yourself.
Sure. So I started, my first substitute assignment was at Oakman Elementary, and I was just at Oakman last week, and somebody just sent me a picture from 1996, because I also did my student teaching at Oakman in 96, and I got a picture, and oh man, I look a lot, some people say I still look the same, but no, I know I look different, but with students, and it was kind of neat. One of the most beneficial things for an educator is when you see the success of your former students, and that's what I have now, is where I have my former students that I was a teacher, they're in society doing well. Now their kids are going through Dearborn Public Schools. So I spent time at Oakman. I did I subbed pretty much every school in the district. And that included a long-term assignment at Becker and at Maples. Then I was hired at Salina as a teacher. I did a third grade and fifth grade. I was fifth grade teacher. I was assistant principal at Salina. Then the Salina expanded during the 2002 bond, and so I took over as the middle school principal, the intermediate school. I spent 12 years total at Salina. When Mr. Whiston came, he gave me a transfer to Duval. He felt like I had been at Salina a long time and it was time for another challenge, in the best interest of the district. Spent 2 years there, and then I went into human resources for 4 years under Mr. Whiston as the superintendent, a great man, a mentor for me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, mentoring me through.
God bless his soul,
yes, yeah, absolutely. God bless his soul,
Yes.
and great family man. It was a big loss when we lost him, and so now I'm 5 years as superintendent. So this is 24 years between all that experience, and a lot of time in the community, and one of the things you said earlier was you might not find me in the office. Well, the reason is because I'm in the schools. And that's where I should be, a superintendent. I'm an instructional leader. I'm in the schools with the students. I make over 400 visits a year. And so if someone does come to the office, they may not be able to meet with me right away because my job is to be guiding instruction, being positive, going to ceremonies, but making sure that we have high-quality education for all our students. 41 school programs, so it's a lot to cover.
Yes, absolutely. And you're one man, right?
Yes. And well, I have a great team, though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's not just me.
Sure.
You mentioned the Superintendent of the Year Award. It was quite an honor last year when I received that. I had my family with me. I had board members. I had staff. I had students.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it wasn't my award. This was the award that belongs to the school
Well, I
community.
appreciate you being humble and everything. What is the next? Are you thinking of staying as superintendent?
Yeah, I don't have any right now. I'm happy in Dearborn, and I have no immediate plans to move or anything like that. The board gives me a 3-year revolving contract, so I'd be up for renewal for another 3 years coming up.
This year?
Yeah, this year.
So like end of this year? Or?
Yeah, so it's during my evaluation they would renew it. So right now I have 2 more years left, and then once I get an evaluation, if it's effective, it goes back to a 3-year.
So it'd be 5 years.
Well, it would be 3 total. It's just
total.
Yeah, it's always a 3-year contract. So I would.
No, I mean like I thought you said that you have 2 remaining.
Oh, 2. Okay, so they'll add 1. So every year they add 1 more to
I see.
it. It's called an evergreen provision that most superintendents have. A lot of superintendents have. Boards like it and superintendents like it.
Well, we wish you nothing but the best of luck, Dr. Maleyko. Any
thank
final
you.
word for the community, for our schools?
I appreciate being part of the community. It's an honor and a pleasure, a privilege for me to serve the students and the community members in Dearborn. And yes, when I get out there, one of the things I do like is the students, although they'll be asking me about closing schools every once in a while. This weather's been good so far, but they also ask me, and I know they always ask me too for that picture with the sign. So now I got the portable version. So this is just to promote the district in a positive manner. And the students love getting in the picture, so I will continue to take those pictures with the students or do anything that will promote our district and the great work we do as a school community. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Of course. Well, thank you so much for all that you do. We truly stand in front of you, behind you, by your side, by the school board, by all of your team, by the entire school community, by our parents, and by every single resident for the sake of empowering our students and their mission. So we thank you so much. Wish you nothing but the best. Please make sure that we are here at your service. Anytime, any event, any announcement, anything that you guys love to share with the community, we would love to play a slight role in that. So thanks so much for
Thank you for your time. Yeah,
absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for all that you do.
Okay.
And God bless you. Guys, we come to an end to this special episode with Dr. Maleyko. Sorry it is a bit short because of other engagements that Dr. Maleyko has, which we totally understand. So that's why it's a little bit shorter than usual. But we're all going to see you guys back next Tuesday at 7:30 live on What's Up Media Network. Good night, guys, and thank you so much.